Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to another video vlog series sponsored here by all your friends at Alias LED. Today's topic and the topic for the next three vlogs will be wellness. We are honored to have our first guest with many hats, the Cannabis Sommelier, Andrew Freedman himself. Andrew, welcome, and thank you very much again for taking the time out of your day for this.
Hey, thank you for having me here. I'm part of the Alias family. I wouldn't miss a chance to talk about lights, and cannabis, and well-being. One of my favorite things, especially going into the holiday season. So thank you for having me and giving me this platform.
Yeah, 100%. And like, we always discuss this with the guests and everybody at first. We won't talk about how wonderful our lights are or how you're going to grow much better. We want to focus on yourself and education and value add to our customers and whoever else is viewing this. So maybe we'll start out right away by finding out what the Cannabis Sommelier is all about.
Yeah, so my name's Andrew Freedman, and I am the Cannabis Sommelier. I'm the Cannabis Sommelier because I am a real wine scholar. I'm one of few Canadian wine scholars. I'm an internationally accredited wine person, and I've worked in wine for a long time. When I was working in wine, I got really excited about the opportunity of pairing cannabis and wine. The more I got into wine, the further I worked in it. I was a winemaker out on the Naramata bench, and I quickly realized that cannabis and wine are almost an identical product. The person, the place, the moment, and when you look at it on a microscopic level, they're both circles encompassed by waxy cuticles holding in their flavonoids, terpenes, intoxicants. So I started teaching people about cannabis and wine, cannabis and craft beer, doing cannabis dining events for people all across North America. And that really blossomed into so much more. Obviously, I've always been a active business person in the cannabis world, and that's led to so many other opportunities. I got to write a book, Terpenes for Wellbeing, that won silver medal at the Living Now Awards, International Publisher Awards for health and wellness. So the Cannabis Sommelier is a lot of things: a podcaster, a YouTube content producer, a CEO, an author. But most of all, he's just a cannabis guy who loves growing cannabis.
Yeah, and it's very evident from the videos or the Instagram posts or any social media posts that you put out there, the passion is there. And I guess writing this book was kind of easy for you. Well, what was the process there, and whose idea was that?
So it's a pretty interesting story. I never considered writing a book. I wrote a lot, and I have many published articles across the internet. But it was the YouTube channel that led to my publisher actually finding me. They were looking for people with analytics specific to topics that they were excited about. And the first book that I was approached about was about weed and wine, a compendium for weed and wine. And as we dove into the analytics of a weed and wine book, it became apparent that maybe that book wouldn't sell as well. And in that meeting, it was really exciting and exhilarating. They said, "What other 5 books would you want to write?" And I pitched a couple, and I think the third one was, how about a book about terpenes and life and well-being? And they're like, well, what are terpenes? And I started explaining, and that book got signed, and we were started in the process a couple weeks later. You get about a year and a half once you're signed to write a book, and honestly, it was procrastination is a great tool for me. So it was really fun winding up, and I'm lucky that I had set better deadlines for myself and watched all the situational comedies about writers screwing themselves in the end, and managed to get a book out on time for publication date that's doing really well and winning awards.
Well, no, that's great and good for you, because you said you have that time, and it's not so much procrastination, it's now the pressure's on, right? You could talk about terpenes like we're talking right now, or with your friends, or consulting what you do, or just the general public. But when it's time to actually put pen to paper, that must sometimes, like they say, you get a writer's block.
Of course, it felt like school again. I had never sat down, and it was really surprising too. I sent in 50,000 words when I thought I'd kind of finished my manuscript, to get an email back saying, oh, we were hoping for 10 times this amount, like 500,000 words, and I just was flabbergasted. The book's about 90,000 words. So after that email, I had to almost double up, which was amazing. And what a weird experience, because we often, as adults, don't draw very many pictures. We don't write very many stories. And we kind of forget about these skills that we spend the foundational parts of our development doing every single day. So it was great to connect with that again.
That is so true. I have 3 kids, they're teenagers. They don't read anymore. They'll read Instagram and TikTok saying, but they don't read. I've been telling my kids, read before going to bed. That'll put you to sleep. Kids nowadays don't read. So yeah, you're right. Knowing that and then having to relate it back to the general audience. This book here is in hardcover. Can you actually get it where you can actually just swipe across your screen?
Of course, yeah, there's an ebook. There's even an audio book. Before you ask, no, I did not read the audio book. There's a real recipe to reading books, but there's an audio book. You can get it on Audible if you don't feel like reading my words and spending that time. But you know, the book was designed to be read pretty fast, to be honest. If you sit down with it for 2 or 3 days a weekend, you should be through it.
Oh, perfect. Okay, good. So we'll let everybody know at the end as well too where they can pick up the book or more information on the audiobook. Well, let's talk. As the name suggests, terpenes. Maybe give the audience a little Coles Notes version of what a terpene is and how it can benefit you, whether it's mentally or physically.
Yeah, my favorite way to describe terpenes are like Lego blocks. And think about individually colored Lego blocks. Terpenes are the building blocks of aroma, of smell, of essential oil. And so when we combine them, we can create this amazing structure. But terpenes in their self are the single source, single cell molecule that is then building all of the smells that we encounter through our life. And I think it's so interesting, again, with our senses, talking about the things that we really forget about. We only really have these 5 senses. And our smells are constantly bombarded. Our sense of smell, it's the one thing that we really can't turn off ever. And so when you start thinking about what aromas are, how smells have been chemically built, and then how to dissect them back to their originating terpenes, it really just involves that sense that you don't turn off so much more in your everyday life. And obviously aromatherapy is almost as old as time, as recorded history. And there's just so many amazing fundamentals that are built in to smells and how smells actually make us feel. And I love talking about that clearly.
Yeah, no kidding. Now, you see a lot of people, they say you can take terpenes away and then add them back into products.
Yeah, of course, terpenes throughout our commercial packaged good world are extremely widely used. Everything from household cleaners and limonene being used as a solvent to making all of your soy-based candles, you find it indigo. The commercial terpene world that's extracted from normal botanicals, saffron or Valencia orange or lemon peel, these are all things that are used and are really important builds in perfume as well. But they're very different botanical derived terpenes from cannabis derived terpenes. When we look at botanical derived terpenes, we can really nail down to a single source molecule because we've found the source host of that molecule, like I mentioned, Valencia orange or a specific lemon. In cannabis, it's a very unique and diverse combination of terpenes once you distill them out of the cannabis plant. And that's what makes the cannabis plant so interesting and unique and complex, and why every strain is so different, because that interaction and how the plant has evolved and developed in its unique environment creates this new complex arrangement, Lego building of terpenes.
Yeah, it's complex, but just speaking with you and watching your videos and your social media, you're very well versed in it. So I can see how people want to get you to help them understand the plant more. And I know you do a lot of dinners as well too, wine and cannabis tasting. How has that gone throughout the pandemic, and has that picked up at all again?
So before pandemic, it was awesome, and we were traveling all over North America, and I was working with so many amazing celebrity chefs. During pandemic, everything shut down, obviously. I did bring back the dinner series August and September, tried to do a monthly again, and just the reality of the environment of the dining world and the different pieces that are in play make it hard to present the same environment and idea that I wanted to. So right now, for the Christmas season, just booking private parties, but taking a step back from the public to figure out the best pivot to give people the absolute best experience, to continue telling those stories and building those bridges between the world of wine and the world of cannabis over a great meal.
Yeah, and if somebody is interested, they can just reach out to your website or one of your social media handles and just reach out to you there. And hopefully, depending on where they are in the country or what country they're in, you'd be willing to take the chance and head out there and bring your cannabis, or do they bring their, maybe outline that a little bit. How does that actually work? Do they bring their own cannabis and wine, or do you actually bring it to them?
Everything is provided by me. When we do dinners, I have an amazing roster of incredible chefs that are happy to work with me. We bring the cannabis, we pair the cannabis to the dish, we pair that dish to the wine, we tell a story about the cannabis and the wine and how it all relates and why it should be at your dinner table and how it's really the next evolution of dinner. I have awesome chef friends all across North America. So anywhere anybody wants to do one of these, we just need a venue, and we're there to feed you and tell you stories and maybe get you a little intoxicated as well. But proud to be probably the person who served the most cannabis and alcohol dinners in the world at this point. So it's a trustworthy experience, and we're not there to get you messed up. We're there to show you the evolution of dining.
Yeah, exactly. You're trying to take that stigma away from what's been here for the last, well, since Prohibition, right? So kudos to you. I think that's great. What's the price range on some of these, depending on the gathering?
Yeah, a public dinner is usually anywhere from $125 to $180, depending on setting and the chef that's involved. For a private dinner, it's $3,200. That includes 12 people. That's all the rentals, all the labor, chef, wine, food, everything. You pay, I show up, I clean your kitchen and leave, and you have a great night. And
I think that's a fair price. We've all had bills coming back from some of these more expensive restaurants, and obviously we wouldn't be more informed if we didn't do this with you at the table. So you know what, that might be something that we do as well too as an Alias team, and maybe offer your services to a lucky guest. So we'll think about that marketing wise moving forward. As far as being a consultant, doing these dinners, writing books, what's your favorite thing to do out of all these?
Talk.
Yeah.
I looked at what I was doing in my careers years ago, and everything really built up to what it is now. But my mom was a great guiding light. What are you good at? Was always something I was asked. And, I'm really good at smoking and eating and drinking and talking. And so what do I love doing the most is business development, connecting with people, networking with people. It's become different in this day and age, but it's exciting because it's allowed a lot more personal connection over platforms like this, where maybe I wouldn't have had the same opportunity to have discussions with people. So I love talking, seeing where the next thing goes, what the next thing happens. I have so many irons in the fire. It's always important to stay on your pivot foot, because the moment you become stagnant in one idea is where you become complacent, and complacency is where mediocrity tends to thrive.
Well, great way to put that, Andrew. It's absolutely true. Diversifying your revenue streams, making sure you're ready to make a pivot, all great business ideas, and you have to in this day and age. As we've seen about 18 months ago, a lot of people had to do a pivot. As far as consulting goes, you doing more here in Canada or the States or other countries?
More customers in the States. The States is just exciting. We were discussing Montana becoming legal January 1st, 2022. So some exciting customers down there. Also quite a few conversations in Portugal. That's definitely an exciting market. So no, not very many consulting clients in Canada right now, but that's the opportunity. And that's what I've always looked forward to, is the globalization of cannabis. When legalization hit, 2018, I really said I think we're going to see 60 months from now, the next 5 years evolve into this global market, and that's where I want to be. I'd love to be traveling the world, seeing cannabis grow up, because it's still such an infant market. It's so exciting to what it might be around the world in places I just don't know as well as Canada.
Yeah, 100%. And speaking with Canada or staying with Canada, you see a lot of articles and news filings and financials. Are we saturated already? Like, what's your take on the Canadian cannabis industry?
I always think about French fries or the bread aisle. Every restaurant you go to has French fries. If they didn't, you'd kind of be upset. And you love going back to the place with the best French fries. I know I do always. If I'm getting a burger, the fries kind of are the cherry on top. And that's how I look at cannabis. You walk into a liquor store, and any average liquor store is 95% consumable alcohol that is assumed it's going to be drank within the first 15 minutes of purchase. They're cheap and cheerful brands that meet a specific market consumer, and that's what's driven that market for a long time. You look at any liquor depot across the country, and there isn't top shelf stuff, but there's always top shelf customers. And so as far as saturation goes, I don't know. Right now in Alberta, we're at about the same amount of cannabis stores as we are liquor stores, and we're seeing the same kind of turnover month over month, and the same kind of style of ones going out of business, ma and pa that didn't really know how to manage their inventory. And so, no, I don't think it's saturated. When it's going to be saturated is when it is globalized, just like your wine store, and you need to decide if you want cannabis from Italy, US, Australia, Spain. Then the saturation will really come. It's always surprised me, just one more point, is that Canadians drink more California wine than people in California, and Californians drink more Canadian wine than all of Canada. So when you see those kind of perspectives coming, what is saturation? Why do Calgarians love California red wine so much, and why do they pick it over BC wine where they vacation every single year?
Yeah, it's a very good point, because we all have our favorite beverage, and as you can tell, they keep these beverages around. Why? Because of quality, right? So I guess that is where the industry is definitely going. You're starting to see that already with a lot of micro collectives trying to get together to bring their products to the market. And well, you're a grower yourself, right? You know how good you can take care of your plants when it's in a small setting. And that's exactly what a micro is for those mom and pa's or mother daughters. We have a lot of clients that are family members. They'll get into the business, but they don't sublet it to another manager. They're actually in it for the right reason. And I think if they can withstand the next 2 or 3 years, they're going to do well, or they'll again get together collectively with maybe a larger LP who can either process their flower or purchase it and sell it, so that they don't have to have the same limitations that are on them right now in order to get their products to the shelves. Because the Canadian consumer doesn't know, when you see a product on the shelf in the retail store, you don't know how many hands it went through and how many fees that had to be paid, or licenses or shelf space fees. There's a reason why cannabis is expensive, and you can't go to the dealer that you usually went to the past 20 years to get the same price, right? Because there are all those processes that the government unfairly or not unfairly, however you look at it, put in.
Yeah, I'm excited to see Farmgate continue rolling out. As we look at the Canadian wine model, that's really only started thriving in the last 15 years, but has been in motion for 45. A medium size, a small winery is between 2,000 to 3,500 cases of wine. So really small amount of bottles. And a medium sized winery is 3,000 to 7,000. As soon as you pass that 7,000, you're a large scale winery. Most wineries throughout Canada are that medium sized winery, and most of them sell every single bottle directly from their door. They're selling cases straight to consumer. They're taking out those middlemen. And really, people have created destination trips to go and do this. Every year, me and my wife go to the Okanagan to spend our saved money on wine to drink through the year, because we are looking for these small batch, delicious, best story bottles. And I know that'll continue throughout cannabis. It just needs to, the stranglehold needs to be off. And we're in the amendment period of the Cannabis Act as well. That'll have a total revision in 2023. We're closer there than we are to the start of legalization. And I do truly think a lot of these things will change and give the opportunity back to that small scale producer, because they've seen how much it's benefited Canadian agriculture already.
Yeah, 100%. And Farmgate, I was totally on board with it till I found out a little bit how it works. I was speaking with one of the Farmgate people here or growers here in Ontario. They can't just take their product right now, like you said, and then put it in their store to sell it. They actually have to take it, tell the OCS that they have it, and then hopefully nobody buys it so they can have it back in their store. They cannot even earmark it for their own Farmgate store. It's crazy.
Yeah, that needs to change. Allocations 100% need to change. You know, if I have a farm and if I have a quality assurance person on staff and I apply my own friggin' duty seals in my facility where you audit it anyways, Health Canada, and I'm following my SOPs, there should be absolutely no reason why you don't trust me to take a box of my cannabis from my facility behind out to the wine store, to the Farmgate store right there, just like every other industry that does that. But, you know, we have seen it manipulated, and it is a trust piece. I can give it that, right? Alcohol has still proven that we take it across the country without paying proper duty. And so I know that their plan isn't perfect on cannabis, but it seems weird that I'm defending the government, that they're trying as best as they can. They just need to change quicker. I just wish amendments would happen faster and people would have the hard conversations in a more expedited manner, so that we could see these changes on the ground floor and give us the opportunity to make money, because that's what it's all about. The more you take out of mom and pa's pocket, the less people want to engage in the idea of commercial legal cannabis.
Yeah, hopefully that 2023 review and revision and editing or amendments come sooner than later, because we already know, well, you're a consultant yourself too, some people that got into cannabis have already switched back out to growing vegetables again, right? So it's you're almost better off to waiting it out for maybe a couple more years before you actually invest a lot of money into your micro, because you're looking at anywhere from, I've heard, as low as 500,000 to as high as 1.5 million just for a micro setting.
Oh yeah,
if you want to do it right.
If you want to do it right, for sure. I tell anybody, you want to do a micro, you need $1 million right now, and that probably won't be enough. And that's a lot of money for a lot of people, and especially if you're not extremely literate or confident going into a bank or venture capital guys and asking for more money. The idea of $1 million is just such a hill to climb. And so I'd love to see more models where there's more opportunity for people to bring what they have into the market. I love a U-brew model where you make your own wine. I think that contract environment could be really cool if the government would take its greedy hands out of the plethora of taxes they've applied to our cannabis world.
How much time we got here, Candace? We're good. Speaking of the government, I don't know if you want to touch base on it, but I know you went through some sort of your back and forth with the government on something in the past in regards to maybe wordings that they were saying or something. Can you elaborate on that a bit?
I have had so many back and forths with the government over these years, Ryan, I can't even tell you. But the most interesting one, I think, that relates to this conversation in terpenes specifically was Phytal.
Yes,
the terpene
that's what
Phytal.
It was.
Awesome. And so I opened some dispensaries with a group of guys last summer, and we had a ton of reps coming in, and they'd say, oh, we have botanically derived terpenes. This is, cannabis distillate and terpenes. And I would ask, well, what's the breakdown of terpenes, please? And nobody was able to provide me those COAs. So then there's a wonderful writer at StratCan, David Brown, who wrote an article about Phytal and DoseCan listing Phytal on their, or Dosis Vapes, listing Phytal on their package, but it not being recalled from Health Canada, even though there were some suggestions that Vital was actually responsible for the vape crisis and not vitamin E or crappy hardware that's now forced the banning and sale of mailing vapes in the United States, which is crazy. Anyways, so when I started investigating Vital with all of the reps, nobody could give me their COAs. So then it was noted that Canopy had commissioned a private study about the effects of Vital and propylene glycol when administered through vapes. But they decided not to release this study. They paid for it privately. They found out results. People were looking at something, thinking that it might be dangerous, and then they decided to not release the results. So my good friend David Heldreth, who was the former chief science officer for True Terpenes before he left there, showed me how to do a Freedom of Information Act request. And so I filed my first Freedom of Information Request Act in Canada. And an entire year later, I was delivered a single CD in the mail that had my case number on it. And I plugged the CD in, and it had nothing on it. It drew a blank. And so I was like, oh, is this a government conspiracy? I called the case auditor that was on the piece of paper they sent with it. And he howled. He's like, I can't believe they still send CDs. Let me send you the e-post version. They're actually shutting down Canada e-post. So I figured out how to get an e-post account, and they sent it to me. And what this Vital study, after all of this, an entire year of waiting, an entire year of not telling the consumers, an entire year of large corporations using this, Vital in any amount will kill you. Every single lab rat that they tested this on either had been euthanized or died within from 30-minute exposure to 8-hour exposure. Every single one of these lab rats died from Vital. And it was really weird to see this super redacted piece of paper on a biology lab in New Mexico, commissioned by Canopy Growth, which was a fully Canadian company at the time this study was commissioned. And to see that this ingredient, this terpene, was killing lab rats. Yet Health Canada has no restriction on the specific terpene being botanically derived and put into vapes that are being sold in recreational stores. And so it was a great concern. It blew up. It got covered very, very wide. And it's still interesting to me that, these buyers for the provincial bodies won't or are not as keen to buy products with Vital in them, but there are still products on shelves with Vital in them right now. And it's there, clear as day. This shit kills lab rats. Like, I don't know why anybody would want to put something in their body that they know kills animals at any exposure rate. So that was my interesting experience with the government this summer.
So where does it stand? Are they taking it any further, or you have to create this website saying boycott these Vital vaping companies?
Yeah, basically, luckily, because I did get the information back, places like Leafly and Stratcan and large publications were able to cover it and hopefully educate more consumers that might not have been aware of the damage or repercussions of Vital being in their vape products. But is it my sword to fall on? No, I would just hope that I stirred the pot enough that the corporations know that people are watching now. It's not worth thinning. But as we get off it, you're allowed to use synthetic cannabinoids and all these things in legal vapes. And it's very disconcerting to me to actually see what kind of blends and mixtures are being put into this massively growing category that's taking over so much market share. So just, ask more questions. If it's really cheap in a vape, I would definitely stay away from it.
Right. And what is the substitute for Vital?
So Vital is just used as a thinning agent. So it stretches everything. So you could use vitamin E, you can use glycol, propylene glycol. And in that same study, it did note that propylene glycol makes your lungs swell and stuff, but it didn't kill any lab rats. So I thought that was very interesting. But there's, and then you can also use synthetic cannabinoids, analog cannabinoids, all these things that, can be, converted through science from other pieces are now being introduced as cannabis cannabinoids. Sorry, not cannabis. They're just listed as cannabinoids. And it's interesting. I'm not a chemist, I'm not a scientist, but knowing that people can now create synthetic cannabinoids and those pieces are able to go into your vape is kind of disconcerting and scary. Don't like it.
Well, you know what? At the end of the day, the cannabis industry needs more people like you. So we're so thankful for you to be part of our Alias fam. I think we have maybe a couple questions on here. What do we got here? Do you believe that terpenes need to be on every package so patient can determine what they are consuming?
This is a yes and no question. Like, I love when I get data and more stats on my wine label, but 99% of consumers don't look at those nerdy stats. They don't care about the Brix level, the pH, the specific clone. Like, when we think about Pinot Noir, there's thousands of different clones that people grow, but on the label and on the front, it's Pinot Noir, and it's up to the consumer to have a little bit more education, or the expert in the store to translate that education. Now, on the other hand, I do like seeing the top 1, 2, 3 terpenes, because although it doesn't tell you what the cannabis is going to taste like, it might start giving you an indication of the intoxication that you enjoy, and steering your buying decisions differently that way. But I think that terpenes on packages are something that marketers have really confused at this point, and have taken a lot of the power away from the consumer wanting to be super educated about it. So that's where I like it too. I think it's good. I think you should have a QR code. I know you're not allowed to put QR codes on the stupid packages, but there should be a tearaway label of full COA on every single one of these, right? Like, why isn't that an industry standard? I don't know.
That's a good idea. Almost like your medicine bottles, like a NyQuil bottle. You peel it up and you can put it back, and everything's labeled. Yeah, that's a very good point. Thanks for the question, John. At the end of the day, you know what? I wish there was more cannabis sommeliers in this industry, in this country. Do you have anybody that you are mentoring right now where maybe you can franchise this cannabis sommelier idea?
I have some great mentees that I work with all the time now. They're not specifically doing what I do, but I do have some great mentees who I hope will carry the torch. You know, it's hard. I don't see anybody else looking at blind tasting cannabis in the same atmosphere. I really respect Jimmy Devine's writing over at LA Weekly. I wish I could smoke more the cannabis that he smokes, but it's really weird. I'm still excited that I've carved an interesting niche for myself.
So what are you growing yourself right now?
The room's looking good. Strawberry cream cake from Regulars. I ended up getting a decent pack there. Some Big Bag, which is Cushman's crossed with grape cream cake. There's some FPOG crossed with GMO. That's from Sacred Cut. And then trying out some frosted apricot from In-House Genetics right now, just for this run. And then did a big pheno hunt of everything to see if we snap out any winners from this run of 18 plants.
Good for you. And what's above your plants?
In the flower room, I rock a Matrix 630 and then a Matrix Red 630. And those are connected with the smart controller from Alias, which is wonderful.
Yeah, much better than the manual dimmers, right?
Yeah, like I had smart plugs running for so long, and just every once in a while I just get worried that the Wi-Fi didn't work for some reason. So I love that they're now connected and daisy chained, and it makes life super easy, especially when I'm working around the room. I used to have a really hard time dimming the light at the back of the room, and now I just have one controller right at the front, and it's great. And the sunrise sunset mode is just awesome.
Yeah, and we're always looking at different ways to improve and make it easier for home growers or commercial clientele. Andrew, I aspire to be as good as you on the tube one day. Thank you very much again for kicking off this mini series. Next week, we have Prairie Grass. They were on our previous series, but they're all about wellness as well too. They're out your way. So everybody, and if there's no other questions, thank you for tuning in. We'll see you again next week, same time on next Wednesday, 12 o'clock noon Eastern. Andrew, thank you very much again. And remember, everybody, to ask yourself, what's above your plants? I don't have a time limit. Gotcha. Is he still there?
I'm still here.